Hi guys, my name is Peter Hall and you're watching HenchTech on YouTube. I'm about to present to you now my top 10 games of all time. I hope you enjoy it. I've put a lot of effort and thought into this, so I hope you like it. Thumbs up if you like it, and leave a comment if you agree or disagree with the list. If you disagree, that's fine, I don't mind. It's my personal top 10, so yeah, I hope you enjoy it, regardless if you agree or do not agree. Cheers guys! This is a must-have for all gamers who are a fan of shooters, but this isn't just a guy who goes around killing people for the fun of it. The Max Payne franchise is actually pretty gritty and emotional. While trying to live out the American dream, he'd made a few enemies, which is an occupational hazard when you're a New York police officer. In the beginning of the first game, we're shown that his enemies got up close and personal, which changed his life from the American dream to American nightmare. He comes home to find his wife and child lying dead in the bedroom. From that point onwards, Payne fell into depression and drunk himself numb, while doing what he does best, killing for revenge, with a dark hatred for humanity. However, having angered one too many people, Payne was forced to leave the country, but he's not the sort of man to back down easy. And even in the third game, even though he's aged, slower, and has a job he despises, working as a security guard for the rich, you still get the feeling that Payne can still dive into slow motion to kill everyone around him. He's seemingly unbreakable, and that's why gamers like myself love it. Max Payne always has his own way of dealing with things. When he's alone, he likes to drink and take some painkillers, which helps him forget about his wife and kid and numbs his pain, until the next day, where he has to protect everyone that he's working for once again. Needless to say that the Max Payne franchise was created by Rockstar. We wouldn't expect anything less from Rockstar. They always make brilliant games with exciting gameplay and brilliant graphics, cool cutscenes and immersive scenery. Rockstar have been known to put numerous Easter eggs in all of their games, including Max Payne 3, where a woman finds out that her boyfriend has been cheating, then all of a sudden, she gives birth to a little demon child. This often confuses the audience and wonder what the hell is going on. But this is Rockstar, and Rockstar can always get away with anything they want because they are Rockstar. But I think out of all the Rockstar Easter eggs, this one has got to be the weirdest, which comes out with orange hair and his legs are all backwards. Then he starts to stare at the camera as it ends. Luckily it was on TV, but Max Payne cannot comprehend what he just saw. Don't you just miss that sound? With 4 very successful and widely popular pro skater games already under their belt, Tony Hawk and Activision decided to flip the whole game concept on its head and open it up for the perfect skateboarding world. Pro skater games were do tricks and win sort of games, very addictive with a surprisingly fun over-the-top element, and with better graphics each game. By the 4th Pro Skater, Tony Hawk actually looked like Tony Hawk, instead of a pixelated blob. However, when Thug came along, none of my other games were being touched for at least a month. I even remember getting up super early just so I could play before school, and I rarely did this, but Thug was worth losing sleep for. With added abilities like dismounting your board, driving cars and riding bikes, Tony Hawk was better than ever. Tony Hawk's Underground 2 soon followed, and then American Wasteland, which would have been my favourite as it was a huge open world without the dreaded loading screens, which was impressive for a PlayStation 2 game. However, I decided to choose Thug because it was the original game changer and somewhat of a revolution for the Tony Hawk franchise. This game is my childhood summed up. It was the game that I could and very well did spend hours playing. An absolute gem and revolution for the first-person shooter. You play an unlucky guy stuck in a world of terrifying two-dimensional monsters, demons and creatures. You must kill your way through the many levels as the strength of the monsters increase. To be honest, I still play this game today, 20 years later. Obviously the graphics can't be compared to anything these days, but the graphics were actually pretty good for its time. Also one of the very first games to include a deathmatch function. That is, if like me, you were lucky enough to have 2 PlayStations or 2 PCs, 2 televisions and 2 copies of the game, with an adapter cable to connect the 2 systems, Then you could hunt and kill your friends, relatives, or take on the evil together. All night fun right there. However, all that equipment would take up a ridiculous amount of space, and there'd be wires trailing across the room, but this was the 90s, and it was well worth the effort. At least times have changed since then. Oh, the nostalgia. I promise I'm trying to put aside nostalgia while writing this list, because when I replay a game that I used to love as a kid, I'm often unable to finish the game, or it's unplayable, because I just can't get the feel for it like I used to, with outdated controls or headache-inducing graphics, but Broken Sword is not one of these games. Although they have been updated, it hasn't taken any of the originality away, and I can happily play any of the classic Broken Sword series at any time. I've chosen the second of the franchise because it was actually the first game in the series that I played. The first was available on the PlayStation 1, but I found it to be incredibly hard to get hold of. With only local game shops as a source of games, and no internet access, I couldn't just log on to eBay to buy it. When I loaded Broken Sword up for the first time, it was clear to me that this was a game changer. Nothing like this had ever been released on PlayStation before. Everyone was demanding first-person shooters and action games, while Broken Sword was on a different wavelength. Instead, we were gifted with a well-written story and beautiful artwork to admire as we attempted to get the two main characters, George Stobart and Nico Collard, out of various life and death situations. I loved the whole Broken Sword series, but the second one was where it all began for me. However, when THQ picked up the game and turned it 3D, they lost a huge amount of their audience. Although the Sleeping Dragon was on PlayStation 2, it didn't have that beautiful point-and-click classic 2D feel we had in the two previous games. The Angel of Death was a major disappointment for me. Releasing exclusively to PC meant that when I finally got a PC, I found myself unable to complete it. But after a Kickstarter campaign, Broken Sword 5 The Serpent's Curse was released and brought back to the glory of its roots, and what a brilliant game it is. If there was one game that I wish I could have saved from the scraps, a game that I really miss playing, and another game that needs to be revised and brought to modern consoles, it has to be Time Splitters 2. I can't tell you how many hours I spent on this game. It was manic, insanely fast paced and brilliantly fun to play, especially with a few friends or relatives. I remember being in absolute stitches watching my older brother trying to shoot me as an impossibly fast monkey, but failing due to the size of the monkey, who was about 2 feet off the ground while everyone else seems to average 5 to 6 foot. Let's not forget Virus, one of the many mini-games within Time Splitters 2, where you must stay the heck away from the infected player. It really got your adrenaline going as the virus spreads to anyone the infected player gets close to, and soon you realise everyone is infected except you, which leads to every player and every bot chasing you, leaving your nerves a little shattered. There were plenty of game modes, and I have to admit I'm sorry that the developer closed down, because Time Splitters wasn't only multiplayer fun, the campaign was very good too. Incorporating time travel enables you to go from one moment in time to another, and a massive list of guns to choose from. Starting with a classic 1950s Tommy gun, the possibilities were endless. What would you do if you were stuck in the heart of a zombie apocalypse? Rescue will arrive in 72 hours, but until then you're on your own. With all the Dead Rising games it has been like this, starting from a mall and ending up to a small town which has been barricaded off, leaving you stranded. Now before I tell you how realistic this game is, I have to tell you that it's made by Capcom, so it has the classic Capcom arcade look and feel to it, but has been made to focus on being fun, rather than an obvious survival, which in my opinion is better. There's nothing more satisfying than combining items to create an awesome makeshift weapon and unloading it onto a horde of zombies. In Dead Rising, the undead hang around in fairly large groups, which means they're literally everywhere. In the first Dead Rising, up to 50 could be seen on a screen at one time. In the second game, maybe over 100 could be seen. Now, however, the third game, thousands of shuffling gits can be seen on the screen at one time. You can also create zombie-proof vehicles to get around town easier. Dead Rising 3 was the sole reason why I bought an Xbox One. Unluckily for me, I found out that it was released on the PC a few months after, but I have no regrets. Every minute of playing it, regardless of the console, it has been amazing. and has kept me up nights when I should be sleeping. The mall setting in the first game was a great idea. The third game includes exploration of houses, shops and many buildings, which is why this is the next gen Dead Rising. You may have read my review on Oddworld New and Tasty. I said that it was one of the best games I had ever played because of the pure creativity, genius and effort behind it all. This fantastical game is set in an entirely fictional world, with characters, location. The second game, Oddworld Abe's Exodus for the PlayStation 1, still makes it into my top 10 games. The 2-disc long game with graphics that even by today's standard aren't half bad. I will always go back to play this game. The more I get sucked in, the more I love it. The levels are fun, original and clever. It gets more and more challenging as you go, but with the godsend of a feature quick save, you can afford to die 100 times before getting it right. As we reach my top 3 games, these are the type of games that have me hooked with fanatical consequences, where I literally want every single piece of memorabilia and merchandise, and in very extreme circumstances, I cannot stop thinking of said game. Portal 2 is certainly one of these. You load it up and start, but you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. It seems like a simple puzzler, using portals to get you to your destination, but it goes far beyond that. If you haven't played the first Portal, which was only intended to be a minigame in 2007, Portal 2 still catches you up on everything you need to know about aperture science. It goes far beyond the depths of a video game. You'll uncover the history of how aperture science came to be, the truth about GLaDOS, a megalomaniac AI who runs the place. As a simple test subject, you find out that the laboratory isn't all it's cracked up to be. The game has magnificent character voice acting, with Stephen Merchant as Wheatley, your useless partner in crime who tries to help you escape but gains access to a little too much power, which of course goes rushing to his tiny robotic chip of a brain. J.K. Simmons voices Cave Johnson, who is introduced a little later in the game, but he is entertaining as he reveals a few unexpected secrets of aperture science. You may recognise J.K. Simmons as the mean but very funny boss for the Daily Bugle in the Spider-Man films. As for the testing chambers, I seriously cannot get enough. It's such an original idea and no one had ever made a game like this before, nor had they even attempted to. Parents often see video games as a waste of time that rot the brains of their child. But if I was going to defend the video game industry with one game, it would be Portal 2.
So you're doing great, just keep running. Okay, alright, so I've got an idea, but it is bloody dangerous. Here we go. Ah!
Portal 2 is a game that was actually sent to many schools so children can get their thinking caps on and learn with portals. Since its release, Valve have released the tools for players to create their own test chambers and upload them to the world. Before I get into this, as of June 2015, this was a totally new game to me. The game is a 5-part episodic game which is still in development, with only 4 episodes currently available, the first episode having been released on the 30th of January 2015. It was actually only a few weeks ago when I noticed the game on Steam in the summer sale. My initial thoughts were that it looked cheesy and probably was going to be unrealistic, but oh boy was I wrong. Turns out I wasn't just wrong, but I was ashamed of myself that I even doubted the game. The game is heavily based on the decisions you make through the dramatic story as you play Max Caulfield, a shy 18-year-old who was accepted at Blackwell Academy. With a keen interest in photography and the ability to take part in various photo opportunities, the game goes from interesting to shocking halfway through episode 1. The game really tugs on your heartstrings as you become emotionally connected to each character. I bought the first episode for $1.99 in the summer sale, because I felt that if I didn't like it, at least I wouldn't have felt I'd lost too much. Needless to say, I immediately bought the season pass after I finished it. The game has one of the best stories I have ever come across in a video game. The character development must have taken an incredible amount of time. I can't even imagine how many drafts and concepts each character has gone through, though I'd sure love to see them all. I would definitely like to applaud Dontnod Entertainment, the developer of Life is Strange, as not a single game has had me gripped right from the start like this one did. Utterly brilliant.
Whoa.
Well, it has been over 16 years since this gem was released on the PlayStation 1.
Colonel, can you hear me?
Think about how many
and
games
clear.
have been released in that time, and yet not a single one of them have managed to knock this amazing game off from the top spot. It will always hold a special place in my gaming heart, as it was definitely a turning point for the gaming industry. Suddenly every action game had to compete with this. Still, I could name many action games within the last 5 years that aren't as good as Metal Gear Solid. I like all kinds of genres in gaming. However, if it's a run and gun type game, I like to follow some sort of story, and this game has it all. A fantastic addictive story about a reluctant legend who just does his job and moves on. You play as a stealth operative codenamed Solid Snake, who do you forgive for thinking has a heart of stone, but actually shows you it's gold, by offering words of wisdom directly to the player. Famous for its long cutscenes and extensive phone calls, Hideo Kojima created one of the first movie-like games. Of course, the graphics are nothing particularly special by today's standards, but they certainly were back in the day. Everyone had some sort of face. Their head moved when they spoke. You could see Snake's breath in the cold. This was groundbreaking stuff for a 90s game, when only a few years before that we had 16-bit consoles which were limited to a small amount of frames, colours, and with so few moves to make. So when Psycho Mantis is suddenly reading through your memory card, making comments on your save game data and moving your controller, you knew you were playing a game way ahead of its time. Since its release, I have replayed and completed this game at least once a year, and will continue to do so to remind myself how amazing this game is. I often think it would be amazing if we were to see a remake of it, and though it did get a remake for the Nintendo GameCube with Metal Gear Solid 2 graphics, I still prefer to play the original. It is perfect. Just perfect.
What? My hand!
So there we have it, guys, my top 10 games of all time. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, leave a comment if you like it, thumbs up if you like it, and you've been watching HenchTech. Peter Hall. See you guys.